Thanks for joining. I'm so excited for what God is going to do today in your life. Take a moment, get out your pen, your paper, your tablet, your notebook, whatever you use to take notes with, because I know God's going to say something that if you pay attention will transform your life. If you're being blessed by the ministry, don't hesitate to make a donation. Go to www.righteous247.com or download our app in the App Store, Righteous 247. Now prepare your hearts, prepare your mind, get to a quiet place, because God's about to change your life. I was speaking to my wife the other day, before I get into the word, I was speaking to my wife the other day, and I was telling her about how Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And I started thinking about the word, and I said, the Bible is so full of historical information as well as, I said, but even bigger than the historical information, the facts that are in the Bible is full of truth. And not only truth, but truths. You know, ever heard of truths? Truths. So I started thinking about that thing. I said, so the principles and the revelation and things that God tells us and teaches us through his word, they are truths as well. Truths mean I follow these truths and then they transform the position of my life. Does that make sense? So when God begins to tell me things like forgive and to turn the other cheek and to begin to be kind to those who don't do me right. See, that's not about fact. That's about a truth as in truths. And when I follow that truth, it changes my life. So now when you tick me off or you do me wrong, my world ain't messed up. Why? Because I'm going to love you anyway. So now I don't have to be stuck, caught in anger and bitterness. Anybody understand what I'm saying? Because the Holy Ghost has caused me to remember the word of God that taught me the way to not allow situations in life to overcome me. The word teaches you how to live in the way that you limit the enemy's ability to attack you, destroy you, or tear you down. That's why when I follow the word of God, which Jesus is the living word, victory is mine because he purchased it through it with his life. Come on, somebody, I need you to understand what I'm saying. So victory belongs to him. All I have to do is follow him. All I have to do is trust his process. All I have to do is trust his word. And victory is automatic. Everybody say automatic. So you got to understand the power of being automatic. See, automatic victory, and I'm already teaching, I wasn't trying to. Automatic victory means it's a fixed fight. Everybody say a fixed fight. Okay, you ever heard of a fixed fight? Fixed fights are fights that they already predetermine who's going to win before the fight starts. So it's not like the fights you may be accustomed to. I'm talking about fixed fights like, sorry to tell y'all, anybody watch wrestling? Sorry to tell you, I don't mean to crush you. You know, I kind of feel like when they told you that Santa Claus wasn't real, somebody like, huh? Sorry, this is just a bad day, but for you. But anyway, wrestling is, wrestling is a fixed, see, that's why you should have had her with the righteous kids, mama. That's your fault. I'm sorry, here we go. Wrestling is I meant to say he wasn't really in a red suit all the time. All right, here we go. So anyway, back to the point. Stay focused. Okay, so wrestling is what we call a fixed sport, meaning that those who are in control of wrestling, they already have predetermined who is going to win. But yet and still, the wrestlers still have to fight. And while they're fighting, the people watching are entertained by the fight. And somehow, many of them may not even know, or they just decide to ignore the fact that it's already predetermined who's going to win. So watch this. Sometimes the one who's already slated to win gets down in the fight. But when you know or you've already read who is supposed to win, you don't start to worry if you know it's already fixed. Okay. Because regardless of what it looks like, the script has already been written that this person is going to win the battle. So what am I trying to tell you? This is a fixed life you live. And I know sometimes we forget. You know why we forget, y'all? Because we get so caught up in how life looks, how the battles look. Sometimes it's like you're not going to make it. You're not going to overcome. You're never going to find the job, or you're never going to get good grades, or you're never going to find a boo, or you're never going to have a good relationship, or you're never going to seem to get to the next level. And sometimes we begin to look at the fight and we begin to say, man, maybe I'm really not going to win. But I have to remind you that it's a fixed fight because victory belongs to Jesus. And if he's already fought the battle and won it, guess what? You gonna win. I need somebody to do better than that and make some noise and give a praise to a God who has already run the battle for you, because you know that your fight, somebody say my fight, is fixed. Now, Now, even in a fixed fight, oh Lord, I really wasn't trying to preach about fixed fights, but even in a fixed fight, if the wrestler who is supposed to win decides for some reason to throw the fight, they still could lose. Let's say, for example, they got mad at the leadership and they decided, you know what, I'm just going to jump down. Now you're supposed, y'all know how wrestling go. 1, 2, 3, you out, right? So what they do most times, they get on the floor, they go 1, 2, and then they shake and they jump up like, all right, let's go some more. Y'all ever watch wrestling before? But let's just say the person was mad, he decided to stay down. Then he would lose a victory that was already his. Let's say he got tired from all of the movement. He would give up a fight that was guaranteed his if he could just endure the process. I'm saying something to somebody. What I would hate to see you do is to lose a fight that was guaranteed yours all because you got tired through the process. Now, I know you get tired. There's nothing wrong with getting tired because it's normal. It's natural. Anybody ever got tired in the fight? We get tired, but if you could just keep going, then you'll get the opportunity to stand holding the championship belt that was won by Jesus. Oh, anybody ready for their championship? Can you clap it up one last time? I'm done. Hallelujah. The enemy is upset, but he has no power. He has no power at all. But I'm excited about God. Actually, that thing that we talked about actually does tie into the word. God is just that good. Everybody, you want to get your notes out now, get your phones out, your notebooks out, your tablets, whatever it is you take notes with, so that you can gather or capture the word today. I don't plan to be long, but I believe the word is straight to the point, but it's essential to us as you prepare to move forward. I want you to go to, well, first of all, the title of the message is Past or Present. Everybody say past or present. Everybody say past or present. One more time, can y'all clap it up for Lady TJ over there? I'm just so excited to see her. Y'all don't understand, man. I'm stronger, y'all. I'm trying to tell you, man. I'm a new man. Thank God for my wife. I get to see my wife and all that kind of good stuff. Don't hate y'all. Just be patient. Don't lose in the process. It's a fixed fight for you. You just can't give up. Let me tell you something. I got tired. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. Anyway, for those of you watching on stream, God bless you. We love you. Get your Bibles out as well. All right, somebody say past or present. All right, cool. Let's go to Exodus 16, verse 1. I want you to look it up before we move forward with it on the screen. As they get it ready, I'm going to talk to you a little bit, but I want you to pull up the scripture and look at them. They already own it. They already own it. Exodus 16, verse 1 through 3. We can see that some of the words are a little blocked out, but we're going to get another color for y'all. But we moving. We don't get this thing tight. Exodus 16, 1 through 3. I know I'll keep asking y'all. Matter of fact, I'm just going to move forward. You ready? All right, let's read it. It says, Then the whole community of Israel set out from Elim and journeyed into the wilderness. I'm reading the New Living Translation. I'm sorry if I didn't tell you. All right. And journeyed into the wilderness of Sin. Now, sin here, let me pause. Sin here is not the sin that we're familiar with. Sin here is a short representation of Sinai. All right, like Mount Sinai, what you'll see later in the scripture. So it's the wilderness of Sinai is how you would really read it, not wilderness of sin as we understand sin. Y'all with me? All right, here we go. So as they journey into the wilderness of Sin between Elim and Mount Sinai, they arrived there on the 15th day of the second month. 1 month after leaving the land of Egypt, there too, the whole community of Israel complained about Moses and Aaron. If only the Lord had killed us back in Egypt, they moaned. There we sat around pots filled with meat and ate all the bread we wanted, but now you have brought us into this wilderness to starve us all to death. I'm going to go back. There we sat around pots filled with meat and ate all the bread we wanted, but now you have brought us into this wilderness to starve to death. Y'all see that? All right, let's talk about what's going on here. Here, this is the children of Israel, who I'm going to give you some background so everybody can be on the same page. How many of you ever heard of something called the Exodus? All right, and let's say you haven't heard of the Exodus. How many of you ever heard of Pharaoh, who had the Israelites being slaves? All right, maybe if you haven't heard of it like that. How many ever heard of Moses, who said, Pharaoh, Pharaoh, let my people go? See, we got some Sunday school people. I knew I was going to find your Sunday school class somewhere in here. So here it is that God's people was enslaved by the Egyptians, okay? Pharaoh is the head of the Egyptians. So they were enslaved by the Egyptians, and the Egyptians obviously were mistreating them. Obviously, you don't tend to treat slaves. It's not the common practice to treat them well or treat them good. So they were overworked. They didn't get a lot. So Pharaoh was mistreating the slaves. Y'all understand? And the slaves in this particular text happen to be the children of Israel, which is God's people, okay? So now they were crying out to God, praying to God, and God made a way for Moses. I don't have time to teach all of it. So God made a way for Moses to come and to approach Pharaoh, to get Pharaoh to let God's people go. Y'all follow me? So Pharaoh here is to let God's people go. So now Pharaoh, just to give you a quick background, he didn't want to let God's people go. He didn't want to lose his slaves, obviously. So what he did was he said no. So after he said no, God started causing these plagues to come. How many of y'all heard about the plagues? You got frogs and flies and blood for the water. I mean, all kinds of stuff happened. And the last one was he killed all the firstborn sons of the Egyptian culture. Y'all got me? All right, so now here, God has finally caused Pharaoh to release God's people. So now God has done miraculous works. Everybody say miracles. So here they've seen evidently that God has fought for them to get them free. Does that make sense? So now they're free. And while they're free along this journey of getting out, Pharaoh decides he wants to chase them again. And while Pharaoh is chasing them again, God decides to literally part the water. Literally, it's a big body of water, the Red Sea. God decides to part the water and let them walk across the water on dry land. Can y'all imagine going to Belle Isle, somebody chasing you, and God just causes the water to part? You walk across over to Canada, you know what I'm saying? And then after you cross over to Canada, they try to chase you. God just caused the water to come back and kill them. How many of y'all will believe that God had your back? So all these things have happened to where they've seen that God has their back, and he's faithful to keep them. Now, with that being said, I want to again put it in perspective. I want y'all to listen to these people. After all of this happened, now we're going to read the scripture one more time. Then the whole community of Israel set out from Elim and journeyed into the wilderness of Sin, between Elim and Mount Sinai. They arrived on the 15th day of the second month, 1 month after leaving the land of Egypt. So this is a whole month later, and look how fast things change. A month ago, all this stuff happened, and you saw God was with you, and he leading you to the great place. And they said, there too, meaning this is not the first time, the whole community of Israel complained about Moses and Aaron. If only the Lord had killed us back in Egypt, they moaned. There we sat around pots filled with meat and ate all the bread we wanted, but now you have brought us into the wilderness to starve us all to death. Somebody say, inappreciative. Here it is. God rescued them from what was miserable to them, but because along the way they didn't like the way it felt through the process, they decided to complain and say, I'd rather be back enslaved. Somebody say, Okay, so now I want to jump a little further. Whenever there's a decision to live for God or to start to live for God, there's going to be a time that you have to answer this question. Am I going to handle this how I've handled it in the past, or will I trust the promise of God that his way is better? How many of us have decided to start fighting to live for God in certain areas of our life? Now, how many of you also have approached a time where after you decided to live for God, you came to the altar, you said, God, I give myself away. You've come and you're like, I'm recommitting my life. I'm ready to fight, and everything is good because you committed. And then you leave, and a couple days later, you're approached with a decision that's going to find out, am I going to handle it the way I used to handle it? Or am I going to handle this the way that God wants me to handle it? Anybody ever? Okay, good. I want to make sure we're on the same page. The reason you have to ask yourself this question is because I discovered something. Every place has its own set of benefits. Now, some of you would agree, if you could think about some of the decisions that you're trying to fight not to make, to be honest, it has certain benefits. You know, back when you was doing stuff your way, there was a certain type of benefit or gratification that you felt doing things outside of the will of God, although you recognize that it didn't work out for your good overall. Does that make sense? If you know that hanging with a certain crew gave you a certain sense of security, but you know it also put you in a place to where your life was more often endangered and caused you to act in a way that was contrary to the will of God, whenever you come to a situation that's uncomfortable, you're going to be thinking about, man, if I was with such and such, or if I was at such and such, I probably wouldn't have to go through this. Anybody ever been through something like that? Or if you have a certain way of getting money, but you decided, now I'm going to follow God. When times get a little hard, you're going to start thinking about, man, if I could have kept my other hustle up, I'd have been straight. But the whole reason you decide to leave that particular hustle was because you recognize all the things that was included outside of the benefit that was not good for you to live in. Does that make sense? So here we have the same situation with the children of Israel. Here it is that God is delivering them to the promise, but they're stuck reminiscing about the conditional benefits of the past. Okay, I'm going to make it make sense to you. And here's the danger, because this is what causes us to fall back into our old ways. I fall back into my old ways because when I get to the place to where the process between my past and my promise from God, in the middle, when I get to the place to where my old way will be convenient right now, I have to decide, am I going to trust God and break through, or am I going to resort to go back? This is the problem that we face when we leave church. We leave church and we commit it for God, but then Bay calls and Bay starts talking a little reckless in the way that you used to like. Yeah. And then you have to decide, am I going to trust God's way, or am I going to fall back to the convenience of this way because I like the way they're talking and it makes me feel real good. Matter of fact, it makes me feel like a man, or it makes me feel like a real woman when they tell me how awesome I am and how wonderful I am. And I remember how we used to have fun and laugh when we was doing crazy things, skipping class and going places we shouldn't go. I remember the benefits of it, but at the same time, I also remember the negative side of it that I was trying and crying out to God to break me free from. Anybody ever prayed to God to get you free from something that during a certain time of getting free you wished you still had? Why? Because in order to be delivered, I have to be able to endure the process between my past, and God's promise. In order to fully be delivered, I have to be able to endure the time or the process between my past and God's promise. And what often happens is, between the past and the promise, people decide to turn back when the process conditions get too rough. I want to give you a secret today as to why we tend to turn back. Anybody ever turned back? If they can be honest, can I see your hand? Make sure I'm talking to the right group of people. All right, let's talk about why we tend to turn back. Because here's the mistake we make. We compare the conditions of our process to the conditions of our past, when we should be comparing the conditions of our promise to the conditions of our past. I just said something. Let me say it again. Matter of fact, let me tell you. Write this down, then I'm going to explain it to you. The problem is we compare the conditions of our process to the conditions of our past, which makes us turn back, instead of comparing the conditions of the promise to the conditions of our past. Does that make sense? I'm going to explain to you. Let me explain to you using the children of Israel, because that may be easier for you to see. The children of Israel were now on a process to being delivered from a life that they were restricted, limited, miserable, and upset. But during the process, they didn't like what they had to go through for God to get them to where he promised them. So while they were sitting there hungry a little bit because they're on a journey to the land, they're not living in the land, they begin to cry out to God like, yo, God, this is some bull. When I was a slave in Egypt, I had food, I had meat, I had bread. So what are they doing? They're comparing the conditions of the process to the promise to the conditions of their past situation. Instead of remembering that God promised them a land flowing with milk and honey, that God promised them that they would have all they need, that God promised them that it will all work out for their good, they're comparing the wrong thing so the enemy gets them to turn back. Does that make sense? It's kind of like when you come to church for the first time and you decide you want to start fighting to live right, start, making some new friends because you recognize that the life you was living wasn't taking you anywhere. You recognize, with the people I used to hang around with, I was making bad choices. I was doing bad things. I was having fun in times, and I was miserable after. I was going through all these things. So I said, God, I want you to come, and I want you to remake me. I had a good time in church. God, can you help me make some new friends? God, I'm so excited. God, I just want to live for you. For you. And then you get here, and you meet some of the people at church. You like, they all right. And then they mess around and have an event. And you're like, I don't really like hanging out with them like that because typically I don't like hanging out with the new people who I'm around. Now, there's exceptions. Everybody say there's exceptions. Because sometimes you'll come to hang out with the people at the church and you'll discover they're worse than the people that you was with before. I'm just going to pause right there for a second. Look at somebody next to you and say, are you one of them? You're not one of them worse than the ones from before, are you? All right, here we go. But a lot of times, watch this, y'all. Here's what happens. We get around a new set of people, and we get mad because they don't make me comfortable being who I tried to come away from. Oh, man. Remember, I didn't like hanging out with this group because when I'm with this group, I did this, and I know I should have did that, and I was acting like this, and I ended up in this situation. And then I come around this new group, and they chilling, and it's cool, but I'm kind of wanting to do some of the things I used to do when I felt like this. But this particular group is not trying to do that, or they're not endorsing that. So now I don't really like them because I'm not comfortable being who I'm trying to get away from with them. Oh, I'm talking to somebody. And the problem is we try to be who we were in the process of trying to get to who we want to be. And when I can't be who I was on the road to being who I want to be, I tend to go back to being who I was. Or another thing that happens is that I come out here and I begin to get with a new group, and I want to influence the group to be like my old group, but feel like I'm better because I'm with a different group than I used to be. So now I discovered that my group really wasn't the problem. It might have even been me. Has anybody ever went from one crowd to a new crowd, and that new crowd became just like the old crowd? You know the only common factor in the two crowds is you. All right, I'm going to let you know. So here we are, the children of Israel. They're going from their past place to a new place, and they're struggling because they're reminiscing on the benefits of the old place when God is like, don't you see what I'm doing for you? You cried out to me to get you out. But I have to take you on a path to get you to where I've promised. It's amazing how some of us want the promise and the amazing place of God before we go through anything to get there. We want to go from doing it my way to all of a sudden God just giving me everything, and God says, well, hold on. There's a process to this. And I ain't talking about this week. I may talk about it next week. But there's power in that process. Because that process is essential for me to be able to actually get to and stay in that promise. Does that make sense? Okay, so here it is. Here it is. They're here, and they're struggling, and now they're complaining. Now, I want to bring this to your attention. We remember this is the same group of people who God has just done miracles to rescue, who God has brought out. They were so distraught about their position where they used to be, but now because the road with God gets rocky, all of a sudden they don't want him no more. Anybody ever experienced the road with God seeming a little rocky? Now all of a sudden, I remember when I was, when I was doing my thing in the world, you know what I mean? I was out there, yeah, you probably can't believe it. But I was out there, I would go to the club and stuff almost every Friday. Everybody say Friday. And, I'm just playing. So I would go like Friday downtown. I was going out, and before we got out the car, we had to have our session. And our session was we had to get our drink on. And the reason we had to get our drink on because my brother used to call, we need to get some of our liquid courage. And I told some of y'all this before, I had to get my courage up because, see, when I don't have my liquid courage, you know, like spinach, Popeye got spinach, that's what the drink was like for me in the club. Because I thought I was a pretty good guy, and I'm saying I had good confidence, all that kind of stuff. But the thing is, you know, all my life, I'm like average height for a girl. So I would go in the club, right? And I didn't want to think about the fact that some girls, you know, when girls go out, they want to put heels on. And it's already, you know what I'm saying? So, like, it was already rough. So that made it even rougher. All right, so anyway, so I would go, and I didn't want to think about the difference in our vertical stature. So what the liquid courage would do for me, Mike, is it would cause me to not care and still be like, what up, girl? You all right? Shoot. Look good from this view up there. And I didn't care because I had this liquid courage. The problem was, the other side of that was, one, I would be acting in a way that I couldn't maintain outside of drinking, which means I was setting myself up to need it to maintain the status of a relationship. Kind of like when people build relationships, acting a certain way that's not really them, and now they got to keep that act up to keep the relationship. Okay. But anyway, I'm talking about me right now. So I would get in that position, and I was putting on this thing, and then the problem was if I saw you next week, I would have to reface reality of what I ignored last week. So I would like to get this liquid courage, and I would be like, cool. And I begin to discover that I can't live my life like this because not only is this not going to last unless I stay drunk, which I ain't trying to do because I want to live my life in a major way that's pleasing to God as well as that's productive, but also there was other issues that came around that liquid courage because now I'm courageous about everything. Somebody bumped me, all of a sudden I think I'm 6'9", I want to swing on people. Hold on, we can't be doing that. It's not cool, Jesus. It's not cool. He like, yeah, I didn't tell you to do that. But my point is, I said, God, I got to break free from this. So I'm like, you know what? Not doing it no more. So I'm like, cool. So now, not drinking no more, so I don't carry my liquid courage. So now when I see a girl, I'm like, looking at her from a distance, trying to size her up, like, let me see. Because I don't have the courage, and there was a benefit. So now when I see somebody cute, there was a time I wouldn't care. But at the same time, I'm not drinking like I used to. So this is a time where I really want to talk to her. So I'm reminiscing on how much boldness I had back then. And I'm like, okay, am I just going to go ahead and cop me something real quick so I can go ahead and go over there and get on, you know what I'm saying? Or am I going to endure the discomfort and go talk to her anyway? Because the thing that I discovered is that even if I was drunk, if she wasn't, it wouldn't matter how she saw me. Let me explain to you what I mean by that. Meaning that even though I had liquid courage, the person is still perceiving the same person, which means I always had the potential to win. But the thing was, I didn't have the courage to follow through unless I depended on a substance. And once I began to understand that, I began to discover that the problem or the victory was not in what I was drinking. It was in the decision to go even if I wasn't comfortable. Okay, I need you to see this. So it's uncomfortable sometimes sticking with God's process. But if I recognize the truth is that I really always had the potential to win. I was just held up by my own self-esteem issues, my own overthinking. And I'm trying to express a point to you. So here it is. They're on their way to a promise. I was on my way to get a good number. Yes, Lord. But my own issues were getting in the way. So I began to want to resort back to the very thing I cried out to God to get me away from. Does that make sense? And the reason is because we compare how easy it was when I was drunk to how much I think walking over there. But after I get there, I still have what it takes to win. You follow what I'm saying? So what I'm trying to get you to understand is that on the road to the promise of God, you have to not allow yourself to think about the comfort or the convenience of your captivity on the path to your promise. Okay, I think y'all start. I think you're starting to get it. Let me go here. So as I'm sitting here and I was reading this, I was studying this, and God was like, nope. Freedom truly manifests when you can endure the discomfort of being away from what you used to be in when it's convenient to be there. For example, thank you, Lord. Anybody ever known someone who was addicted to a drug or heard of it? Now, when you're addicted to a drug, how do you get delivered from the captivity of addiction? By taking what? Anyway, so watch this. The way that a person gets free from the captivity of an addiction, they have to be able to endure the process of withdrawals. What's happening during withdrawal? During withdrawal, it's uncomfortable. And I'm craving what I used to have, but I know I don't want to stay addicted to it because of the fruit it produces. This makes sense. So because it produces fruit that I know I don't want to get and I want to be free, I have to be able to endure the withdrawal time where I'm accustomed to resorting to it to be able to break through to the deliverance of actually being free and walking in the promise of being in control of my life. Thank you. You got it. He got it. Okay. So what I'm saying is that the key to my deliverance, the key to your breakthrough, the key to your next step, the key to you believing in yourself, the key to you getting to the next level, the key to you actually earning an A in a class and not cheating is when you sit at the test and you're uncomfortable, you decide I'm not going to go back to cheating. Even though I know that smart girl sitting next to me. Because I discovered that although cheating, I was getting good grades, I was still becoming nothing the better. And I discovered that I had A's on the paper, but I felt like an idiot all during class and nobody knew. Teacher was smiling at me saying I'm brilliant, but I knew on the inside that I knew nothing of what they were talking about, all because I cheated. And although it felt good when I would get the compliment, it felt good when I would get the paper back with the A on it 100%, I still knew that after I left this classroom, I would be none the better, which means it could prohibit my next step when it's time for me to produce. What am I going to do if she changes our seats? Anybody ever had that good cheating that you cheated off of and then your seat got changed? You almost wanted to fight for that seat. Like, man, you're in my seat, big fella. Because I had grown accustomed to cheating. But then I discovered I didn't want to have to make sure I was an hour early for class to make sure I can get that seat in my first hour. I want to be able to walk to my test and know that I can overcome. I want to be able to leave my class and know that I'm the better. I hope you thought like that. But anyway, let's say we thought like that. So now I have to begin to fight through the discomfort of studying. I have to fight through the discomfort of looking at the question like, let me see if I can figure this out. Okay, if I carried it forward. Okay, wait. I got to go through that to break free. But if I go through that process, then now I have the confidence to live knowing that I have the ability to produce on the inside of me. Does that make sense? Clap it up if you understand. Clap it up if you understand. Okay. That's really all I'm trying to say to you. I'm trying to find ways to make it clear to you and make it make sense to you that the enemy he's going to always, how many of you believe in God that you're going to change something, you're going to get to a new place in your life? See, this is the people I'm talking to, and I want to make it really clear for you. I need to let you know now, on the process to becoming who you desire to be. Tell somebody, say, because I will become. On the process to you becoming who you desire to be, the process may get rough, and you may feel like resorting back to who you used to be. And when that moment comes, don't compare the discomfort of the process to the convenience of your past. Recognize that there's a reason why you believed and you started chasing the promise, because the past was not good enough. And regardless of how much I have to fight right now, I'm going to trust God that at the end of this process, I'll be free and make it to my promise. Does that make sense? Because I'm here to tell you that the enemy is going to challenge you. You know what I'm saying? He's going to challenge you. You know, when you're trying to think clearly, you don't think clear as you thought when you was high. Yeah, okay. I'm going to leave that alone. So now when I'm trying to be calm, I'm struggling. And I have to decide, am I going to resort back, or will I let God give me a peace that surpasses all understanding? Will I believe he'll keep me in perfect peace if I keep my mind stayed on him? Am I going to trust that he has more for me? I don't need something to replace him. I don't need something to get me through. I want to be through and stay through. I don't need something to get me by in the moment. I don't want to get rid of the symptoms. I want to get it at the root. Anybody understand what I'm saying? See, the biggest problem with a lot of our issues is we're trying to deal with the symptoms of the problem instead of the root of the problem. They were dealing with, I'm hungry and I'm hungry now, so I'd rather give up everything that I'm on my way to get because I'm hungry now. Are you hungry now? I'm going to let the Holy Spirit replace your hungry where it fits your life. Are you hungry now so you're thinking about giving up everything that God is trying to get to you? Are you hungry now or going through now so you're going to resort back to the very people you were trying to get away from? Are you going to go back to the tradition that you just walked away from? Are you going to go back to giving God just a little bit like you were giving before because you're having a moment now? Or can you endure the process to become all that God truly called you to be? Does that make sense? That's what I'm here to tell you, that on the process to becoming, you're going to encounter things that's going to make you want to turn back like, God, I'm good. It's hard for me to trust you. I'm just going to call old boy back. Even though I know we would get into it and every now and then he slap me, but I mean, you know, that's just a part of our love. Because it's uncomfortable not having nobody to call, so I'd rather call somebody even if they do slap me. Excuse me? Or maybe you the guy and you like, maybe you getting slapped. Or, hey, it happens. Okay? Or maybe, you know a guy, it's rough trying to, not have nobody to hold me down. You know what I'm saying? It get rough out here. You know what I mean? And even though she talked to me like I wasn't nothing, and she always tell me how terrible I was and how I needed to get it together and how I wasn't no good. I still, you know, I'm thinking maybe it's gonna change one day, so I'd rather have somebody and we work and it change one day and be miserable until that day come than have nobody and trust you. He like, man, you had no idea the next week you was gonna meet the girl that's gonna change your life. But the problem was you decided to go back to old girl, and then you ain't even show up to where I was gonna have you at to bless you because you got caught up in the past when you compared it to the process instead of trusting me that I was faithful to fulfill my promise. That's all I'm trying to say. God is faithful. We talked about following him. This fight is fixed. The desires of your heart is fixed. We just have to endure the process. And if you can endure the discomfort of the process, you'll see the fruit of God's faithfulness to his promise. I need you to hear this word because a lot of us like to take the shortcut back to our old ways. We give God all types of excuses why our ways should work. I mean, God, we love each other, so, you know, we just decide that's how we want to express it. He like, but you didn't want to be caught in that same position to where you don't even know if they really love you or they love you for what you can do for them. So now you're struggling with your value. Now you're insecure with the title. Anybody ever been insecure with the title? You're like, I'm trying to give you real life. Some of you, you know that God has called you to do something great, but you're struggling with the convenience of your old job. And then some of you have even left the job and, okay, God, I'm going to build this business. I don't care how old I am. I'm going to build this thing. I'm believing this thing. But then I encounter a moment to where my finances ain't coming quite like I want them to come. So what I do, I think about my past. Man, if I just go ahead and get that job, then I can at least pay this phone bill. But God's like, yo, didn't I promise you? Didn't I put a vision in your heart? Didn't I give you a dream to build something great? Anybody ever been there? See, I got to be talking to people who want something. I got to be talking to people who will believe for something, for this to even make sense. See, some people, this word may not even feel like it even has any relevance because you have to have a desire to know that you need to walk away from something. And you have to have walked away from something so that the enemy is going to make you wish you still had it in hard moments. But then also, if you've made it to a promise, you know what it's like to finally get there and be glad you didn't go back. I thought I'd get about 7 claps right there. I know it's got to be a few people out there who know that the promises of God are faithful and that God will respond if you can make it through the temptation of the process. I'm here to tell you, there's been some processes, y'all, it was hard for me to come out of. But I'm only giving it to you like this. I'm only talking to you like this because I know that the reward of making it to the promise is so worth it if you can endure the discomfort of the process. I'd be lying to you if I told you it didn't get hard following God. But I would also be lying to you if I told you after following God hard, he wouldn't be faithful to perform. See, I need some more people who've been through something to be excited about this. When you follow God, he's faithful to perform, but you're going to have to endure a rough season of deciding, am I going to go to my past or am I going to trust God for his promise?